Fantastic Four Life Story, issue number 4. We are leaving the 80s behind with the death of Johnny Storm, and we are going into the 90s. It's the bright future. Everything's coming up Ben Grimm. Because this is all about our fun-loving, blue-eyed thing. I love it. This was, I think, I said it last issue. That was a really strong read. It just worked perfectly. It was fun. I enjoyed everything about it. This one is on the same level for a different reason. I think this is just a really good Ben Grimm story. It's just nice to see him find that happiness finally. So it's like 94. He's like, the world's finally coming together. The Soviet Union fell. Everything's going great. Reed got his space stuff. He's going to build stuff to stop Galactus. Tony stopped the global warming before it really took place. T'Challa and Wakanda, they found a cure for AIDS. It seems like the world finally stopped hating each other, and we finally came together. And we see that Ben's headed to the grave of Johnny Storm, where he's meeting with Sue, and she's looking a little bit older. Again, her brother was 40 in the 80s, and you gotta wonder, how old is Sue in the 90s? Interesting stuff. So we see a couple days later, Ben's just hanging out at home. He gets called into the laboratory by Franklin and Reed. He's seeing that Reed's using some AI stuff to kind of figure out how he's going to fight Galactus, but that's not the reason they called Ben Grimm in here. The reason is Franklin is getting married. Franklin, who should be about 20-something now, I'm going to assume. Maybe he's in his early 30s. He's getting married. He wants to go celebrate with his uncle and his father, but Ben's like, you know what, you guys go on without me. I have something I gotta respond to. It's very personal. We see him open up a letter, and Ben's like, I mean, everyone deserves to be happy, and I hope everyone is happy. I'm kind of happy, almost everybody. And we see that he's headed to Central Park. He's asked there to meet somebody. And we see the person he is talking to is Sally. Sally from the first issue, from the beginning of Ben Grimm's entire career as the Thing, the person he couldn't come home to. And she even asks, why didn't you come back? And he's like, how could I? Look what I've done. Look what I've become. And we see that Sally, she's moved on with her life. She has kids. She went to college. She did good. She's having a good life. But it was good to see her. And even just that reconnection of meeting this woman, it kind of breaks his heart. And he's like, I think everyone deserves to find love. And why don't I? Why haven't I found it? We cut to an observatory in Puerto Rico, and we're like, hey, Reed, that thing you've been talking about for literally 30 years, it's coming. It's going to be here very soon, and we should deal with it. Can you deal with it, Reed? How long do we got? Who knows? Could be a few years, but it's coming here quick. So we're gotta get ready to break it down and do something with that. Then we see that I really like this part of the story. I think it's a very powerful just message. Where it's like Reed has been talking about Galactus pretty much the entirety of his career on the Fantastic Four. And when they finally announce to the world that Galactus is coming, the end of the world could literally be in a few years. Nobody is broken about it or defeated. They're just like, hey, you're going to save us. You're Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four. You have the abilities to stop all this before it gets bad. And Ben's like, you know what? I actually believe he might be able to do this. And even if he doesn't, it could be the end of the world anytime soon. And because of that, everybody deserves to find love, so maybe I should too. And then we see Ben try some, computer dating. Meets a woman, shows him an old photo. He starts going to clubs with a couple of younger guys like Franklin. Just hanging out, having fun. But he's not really connecting with anybody or finding that beautiful love that he's been searching for pretty much since Sally. And I think that's kind of cool. One of the things I really like is that when Ben's on the computer, he is wearing glasses, but because of the way his head is shaped, he has an elastic band or something that goes around his head that holds the glasses on. I think that's a really cool detail. And as he's looking at the computer, he sees that he got a perfect match. And I was like, oh, who could this be? And I'm like, why did I think of this when it happened? So Ben is literally setting up for a blind date, and his date walks in. And it's Alicia. And I'm like, of course it is. Why didn't I think of Alicia when it happened? I'm like, of course it is. So they just get to talking. Everything is going well. He's just feeling better about himself, And even now, Ben's like, for the first time I think in my life since this happened to me, I feel like I'm happy. I walk down the street, I feel better, and never thought I'd feel this, but I do, and it's great. But because things are getting very serious, Ben wants to reveal something to her that he's never told another person in his life. So they go out to dinner one day, and Ben starts talking about his time during the Korean War when he was a pilot. And, him and a couple of the guys there, they used to hang out, but there was an orphanage that was a little bit away that they used to just go to. And, they'd play with the kids, they'd give them food and stuff, just hang out with these kids, and everything was going well, and they're just having a good time there. But one time, when Ben comes back, he sees that the orphanage is a little broken, a little twisted up, and that some of the kids had to be relocated because they were injured. And everything's like, oh, that's terrible. Like, what happened to these kids? So he's going back to the base, and he's just trying to figure out, like, I wonder what happened to these kids. And he's looking at a map of the Korea site and everywhere they bombed, and Ben sees on the map that the place that he bombed, that it was him behind the pilot's seat, was the village where the orphanage was, and the kids got hurt because of it. So when he saw them later, he just saw that the rations that these kids were given were cut in half. They were literally on the verge of starvation. They couldn't keep going. So Ben Grimm does the most Ben Grimm thing imaginable. Just goes back to his base, punches the guy in charge, takes all of the supplies that they were going to have and gives it to the kids and the guy who runs the orphanage, and they feed it. He's like, I got court-martialed the next day, got a dishonorable discharge, and I never saw those kids again. But it's the one thing I did right by my life that I have no regrets about, but it still haunts me. Like, I caused all this pain to these people. I essentially ruined their lives, and I hope everything worked out for it. And Alicia's just trying to tell him, we all do bad things sometimes, but the fact that you're telling me this shows that you're trying to grow past it and become the person you always thought you could be, and that person does exist. So they're standing in the rain later, and it's just I think we both deserve to let ourselves feel love. It's scary, but we should do it. So they kiss in the rain, and it's just beautiful. It's great. I know people have their lists of their favorite couples in Marvel Comics. Everyone's got their list. The underrated winner of that list is, of course, Ben and Alicia, because they have been almost consistently together for a very long time. They are a very believable couple. It just shows you the triumphs of what love can bring. And they recently got married and adopted 2 kids, which is great to see. I love it. I think it's really cool. And I think this just shows you that even in a different type of story, Ben Grimm deserves to find love, and the fact that he does is really nice to see. So it's 96, and Ben's getting really excited. He's like, come on, dude, your kid's getting married, Reed. Get up and get excited. And during this, we see what's really become of Reed Richards, and he is this old man who is broken. His hair is all white, he is wrinkled, he is disheveled, but he adjusts his face to make himself look younger, but mature at the same time, where he's not grossly young. Then we're at the wedding. We see that Franklin is marrying a woman from Wakanda, I do believe. And it's just kind of cool to see that. So at the actual wedding, they're dancing around. And everyone's having a good time. But Reed's trying to talk to Sue I don't know why it took me this long to realize you are the only thing I actually truly loved. And the fact that I lost you, I will never be able to make up for, but I want to try again. And Sue's like, dude, it's literally decades too late for that, and you try so hard, but you're building a statue of the man you think you're supposed to be, and you can love a statue, but it will never love you back. Those were literally what Sue says to him. I'm like, that is an accurate depiction of their relationship sometimes. I know in more contemporary stories, Reed's not a big of a dick, but in classic stuff, Reed sometimes completely neglects this woman, and you wonder why she's with him. And I think this is Sue being like, I care about you, I always will, but I'm not going to give myself to a man who can't fully give himself to me. And that's just a really cool way to take charge of stuff. But Reed starts having this weird vision, and he's like, oh, Galactus is coming, so the Fantastic Four fly off into space. They're like, what's going on? Something is coming for us. And when they get into space, they see this thing destroys their satellites, and that, of course, is the Silver Surfer. And I don't know if this is Norrin. They don't really specify. It could be somebody completely different. It looks like Norrin. It's got the classic Norrin rat design, but it doesn't have like the Norrin feelings. I guess this is a Norrin rat who hasn't met humanity yet and hasn't changed. So he could just be, over the top. Ben goes out to fight him. He's like, well, I lived a good life, and this is like the warning of Galactus coming. I'm glad I, met Alicia. I'm glad I helped those kids. If this is where I die, choke holding this big old spaceman, then that's fine by me. But instead of like letting Ben die, Reed comes in to save him, and Silver Surfer just literally blasts across the planet just to try to see if there's anything worth redeeming about it. And he's like, nope, not really. There's nothing here that's really worth it. So I'm going to tell you the truth. You got a couple, 10 years before my master comes to eat your world. So good luck with that. If you can defend yourselves, who knows? But there you go. 10 years. There's your clock. We got to make it to 2006. Was 2006 the Mark Waid stuff? Or that was before, wasn't it? Who was doing it in 2006? That's like peak Fantastic Four era is like that time frame. The 2000s to 2010s. So we're going to get a lot of cool stuff, I'm imagining. But in this scene, we see that, Ben's just kind of like heartbroken. He's like, okay, can we do this? Who knows? We're going to try, but if we don't get it right, I'm not dying, miserable. So he goes to Alicia, he gets down on one knee, and he proposes, and she says yes, and he's going to be happy, and it's beautiful. Then we cut to 3 years later. It's 1999. The new millennium is coming in. And thanks to the Fantastic Four, we actually lived to see this. And we see that New York City honors them with a big statue with the title, The Best We Had to Offer. And it is just such a weird title because it's not really nice. It's just kind of rude. It's like the best we had to offer. They could fail. Cool. And we see Reed has a breakdown. He literally has to go to the next room, and he's just like, I can't do it. And he just has a breakdown. And that is where we leave the 90s for the Fantastic Four. It is a great contrast between Ben finding love and Reed accepting he can find love, all over the background of Franklin Richards getting married. Very cool. Very interesting to note that we haven't seen Valeria brought up. I know she wasn't big, and they're kind of doing things time frame, but you'd think they would have maybe went for Valeria by now. I guess she could be just Franklin's kid, if that's what they're doing. Who knows? But it's cool. I love this book. Just a sad Ben Grimm finding love is something I could read endlessly. Seeing Reed still struggling to be that man he'll never become is really cool. And I'm a big fan of the Silver Surfer, so anytime he appears in a book, I'm interested. So that's really cool to see. Life Story continues to be one of the best distilled versions of the Fantastic Four lore. It's just compelling to see the way Mark Russell is balancing out every part of the character's narrative and their history into a beautiful storyline that makes so much sense and just feels so realistic for these characters. Playing with the government and the Soviet Union and all that stuff really helps build this to be something incredibly cool, and I really enjoy what this book is offering. So, the Fantastic Four Life Story issue number 4, I'm going to give a 9 out of 10. Now, thank you guys for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, and I will catch you in the next one. Have fun, stay safe, good luck.